Welcome back, I'm George, and in this video I'm going to show you the first things you need to do on your new iPhone 17 Pro or 17 Pro Max. I have customization settings, I have improvements for your user experience, and of course I have lots of interesting features that are disabled by default, and that will make your new phone feel and be 10 times better. But anyways, that being said, and without further ado, let's begin with one of the first things, if not the first thing you need to do on your iPhone. If you come here to the home screen and tap and hold on any empty space, you'll see everything starts to wiggle, and you'll have an edit button at the top left. If you press it and then tap on customize, you'll see that you get a bunch of different options to customize the appearance of the icons on the home screen. As you can see, we have a default mode, the classic. We have a dark mode, which essentially turns every light surface into a dark surface. Then we have a clear mode, which is brand new to iOS 26. And well, in my opinion, it looks pretty cool, very futuristic and elegant. But in terms of readability, it is not the best. But thankfully, Apple also thought of readability, and they included these three options at the bottom. We have the light mode, which is the one you'll see by default, but you also have a dark mode, which is going to turn everything into a dark, transparent layer. Think of it as the dark mode for the clear icons. And of course, it is going to improve on readability. Things are going to be easier to see when you have the dark mode enabled. Finally, as you can see right here, we have a tinted mode, which lets you tint every icon to a specific color, and you can choose pretty much any color on the rainbow. Every color that's available or that exists, you can choose. But because generally this is not the most appealing looking thing in the world, Apple also included these options right here at the bottom. This one is going to match the color of the icons to your case. This one right here is going to match the icons to the background. And this button right here is going to let you choose a specific color from your background or from your wallpaper to set it as the color for the icons. Essentially, this helps you match the coloring of the icons to everything else, so you can make your set of icons look a little bit better. Also, right here at the bottom, we also have the light mode and dark mode alternatives, which is going to tint everything a little darker, so it's easier to read. And also, right here at the top, we have this button that essentially gets rid of the text below the icons, and it makes them a little bit bigger. This is going to essentially give you a more professional, minimalistic look, which I actually really enjoy. But if you're new to the iPhone, I suggest you turn it off because you're not going to know what each icon is. So ideally, you want to have the names below until you actually get familiar with the OS, and then you can get rid of the text so it looks a little cleaner. But anyways, that being said and moving on, we have covered the home screen customization. It is time to cover the lock screen customization. For this, you just have to tap and hold anywhere on the lock screen, and automatically you'll access your collections, which is where you can see all of your individual lock screen customizations or styles. If you want to create a new one, you have to swipe all the way to the right and tap on plus, and automatically you'll be able to choose between your pictures, iOS 26 specific and default wallpapers. You can choose between collections like emojis, kaleidoscope, Unity, and Pride, and well, pretty much every collection of wallpapers that Apple offers by default. But in this case, I'm going to choose one of the photos I had on the gallery because I want to show you a really cool feature for lock screen customization for the new iPhones. If you choose any of the images you have on your gallery and then tap on this button right here, automatically the iPhone is going to turn it into a 3D image like this that gives a lot more depth to the lock screen and makes it look way cooler and more futuristic. And well, besides that, you also have the ability to customize essentially everything that shows up on the lock screen. As you can see, we can tap on the date, so we can replace it with weather information, calorie information, and information about pretty much every other app that supports widgets on your phone. So the more apps you have installed, the more options you'll see right here. Then you can also change the time, making it changing the font of the time, making it a little thinner, a little thicker. And you can also change the color of the time, making it, well, any color on the rainbow, pretty much. As you can see, you have a color palette right here. So if you don't like any of the colors you see, you can always choose between this very long list or tap right here and select any color on your lock screen wallpaper to make that the default color. But that being said, quick tip, I always suggest you tap on the first one, the default one, because it is the one that's generally going to be most contrasty with the background. And well, if you don't like the liquid glass layer that makes it more transparent, you can also tap right here on solid and make it a solid color so it's more readable. Now, as you probably saw earlier with the first font right here, the text was a little bit longer or taller on the lock screen. This is because when you select this font right here, you can actually change the shape of the time. You can make it taller, you can make it shorter, so it looks, well, better on your lock screen. You can, well, it's another customization option, so you can make it look better. Now, that being said, something you should know is that when you elongate the time, the widgets are going to show up at the bottom. In this case, if you tap on Add Widgets, you can also add 2 big widgets like these, or you can add 4 small widgets. That hasn't changed as opposed to previous iPhones. And the coolest customization feature on the lock screen, you can also change the quick toggles right here at the bottom. So if you tap on minus and minus, you can actually then replace those default options with anything else you want. You have a very, very long list of controls. You can essentially do anything you want. And if you have something very specific you want to do with a quick control, you can always tap on shortcuts and create any automation you want. You can open your garage door, you can turn on your coffee maker, you can do anything you want. Of course, that would be a little more complex and needs a specific video for shortcuts. But yeah, if you really want to play, you can do anything. But I'm kind of an NPC, so I'm going to choose the default torch and camera controls. Now, once that's done, you can tap on Add. It is going to now give you the option to customize the home screen icon. So you can tap right here and make it blurry, or you can make it visible. You can replace it with a default color or any of the pictures you have on your gallery. And finally, you can tap on Done, and you'll be back to the home screen with your new set of lock screen home screen design. But anyways, that being said, and before we move on, I actually have something for you watching this video. Okay, so a lot of you know me from this channel, whether it is in front of the camera or back there in the top-down shot. But right now, I'm actually building a new channel that's a little bit more ambitious, where I will be needing some extra help. More specifically, I'm looking for a co-host to be in front of the camera with me, and I'm looking for a videographer to shoot the videos. So if by any chance you're interested in being a co-host on a YouTube channel, or you are a videographer, send me an email to this address so we can talk. But anyways, that being said, let's get back to the iPhone 17 Pro, because there is a lot more to cover. So first of all, as you saw earlier, we can make 3D images for the lock screen, but something very few people know is that if you tap on your photos and select a specific image, you can actually turn it into a spatial image or 3D image with the tap of a button. So that's not just limited to the lock screen. You can turn any of your images into a 3D design or 3D picture with just one button. But anyways, that being said, let's now move on to the battery settings you have to change to get more battery life. First of all, you have to tap on Settings, then swipe down to Battery, and then swipe down again to Power Mode. As you'll see right here, there is a new option called Adaptive Power, which essentially is going to change the power of the processor depending on what you're doing, so the phone can save a little bit more battery life. Now, so you understand, ever since we got the first iPhone, the processor on every phone was working at 100% regardless of what you were doing, which, as you can probably assume, is not the best thing for battery life. When this option is enabled, the processor now has the power to clock down or reduce its capacity so it doesn't consume as much power, and therefore you save battery life. Now let's swipe back to the main battery settings and tap right here on charging, because I highly recommend, not necessarily to get more battery life, but to get more battery longevity, that you set your charging limit to 90%. Now, this is going to mean that your phone can only charge up to 90%, which a lot of people don't seem to like, but it is really good for your battery health. It is going to make the battery last a lot more time. In my opinion, with these new iPhones, you get really good battery life. You don't really need that extra 10% most of the time. And if you really need it, you can always swipe it back to 100, set the limit to 100 once again. And well, for that specific day or that specific vacation where you're going to need a lot more juice, you can just set it to 100% and then go back to 90. But trust me, this is going to improve your battery health like nothing else. And well, also here on the battery section, you'll see that at the top, there is a new menu showing how much battery you have left. And when you plug it in, it also shows how much time you have left to get to 100%, which is really useful information. And all the way at the bottom, you'll see the battery percentage option, which for some reason is turned off by default. When it is turned off, as you can see, you will not be able to see how much battery you have left. So I highly suggest you turn it on. I think it is pretty useful information to know how much battery you have left on your phone. Now, also some useful information regarding the battery. With the new iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max, you now get 40-watt fast charging. So finally, you can charge your phone at a pretty decent speed when you plug it into a compatible wall brick. Now, as many of you know, the wall brick does not come included in the box. You have to buy it separately. But just as a quick tip and reminder, you don't have to buy the official Apple charger, which is very expensive. You just have to buy a charger that has the same watt power as your iPhone can take. So ideally, you want to go to Amazon and get any 40-watt charger you see that is not super crappy. Now, that being said, something you should also know is that the battery-specific settings on your phone are not the only way you can save battery life with your iPhone. There is many more things you can do to improve battery life. The first one is to come right here to General and swipe down to Background App Refresh and turn off every single app you don't need to be refreshing in the background. In my case, it is, well, pretty much every app. I don't need music to be refreshing. I don't need the notes, numbers, pages, podcasts, pretty much every default app that is going to come turned on by default. You don't really need to be updating in the background. And as you can probably guess, for apps to be updating, they have to be turned on. They have to be fetching data from the cloud. And of course, that burns battery life. The least amount of apps you have turned on this list, the more battery life you'll have. Now also, let's get back to the main settings page and swipe down right here to sounds and haptics. Another great way to save battery life is to swipe all the way to the bottom and turn off system haptics. Essentially, this is going to turn off all the little vibrating engines inside of the iPhone that make vibrations when you turn up the volume or tap on the flashlight, or, well, a lot of system things that have little vibrations attached so it feels more premium. Those vibrations actually cost you a lot of battery life. So if you don't really care for those things, it doesn't affect your user experience, I suggest you turn it off because you are going to save a lot of battery life. And well, also here once again into the main settings page, if you tap on notifications, you'll see a not very long list. In my case, it is very small because I just have the default apps. But in your case, it is going to be a long list with every app that has the ability to send notifications to your iPhone. And much like with Background App Refresh, the least amount of apps you have on this list, the better for battery life. In this case, if there is an app you don't really use or you don't really want to be sending notifications, you just want to tap on it and turn off Allow Notifications. I suggest you leave on your messages, mail, phone, and, well, every important app you have on your phone, but everything else, all the video games, all the basic apps you have by default with the iPhone, turn them off because they are burning significant battery life when they are turned on and looking for new notifications to send. And well, that being said, I have to say one of my favorite ways to save battery life, and one of the most effective, is to come back here to the main settings page, then swipe down to Apple Intelligence and Siri, then tap on Talk and Type to Siri, and turn it off. Because let's be realistic, you are probably not using Siri on a daily basis or even on a monthly basis, so you don't really need to have the Hey Siri option available. It is going to have all the microphones working and looking for your words all the time, which burns a lot of battery life. And even when you turn this off, you just have to press and hold on the power button to activate the functionality. So it's not like you're going to have to, activate it with a much harder and tedious process. It is a tap of a button away, and you are going to save a lot more battery life. But anyways, that being said, and moving on, as many of you probably know, with the new iPhones and iOS 26, we've gotten a new design layer called liquid glass, which makes surfaces look a little bit more glassy and shiny than they did before. This is something that, well, it's a matter of personal preference. Some people think it looks classier. Some people think it looks, almost identical. But something that is for sure is that, as you can see right here, we have some readability issues with iOS 26. Of course, these surfaces are more transparent and they leak into the background with more ease. So, once again, as you can see, sometimes it is very hard to read text depending on what's on the background. If you've not been enjoying the new liquid glass layer and you want to go back to what you had before, there is an option on the settings so you can fix this. If you swipe down to accessibility and then you tap on display and text size, you can turn on reduce transparency and automatically you'll be back to what you had on iOS 18. So everything is going to, not the same. It is going to literally reduce all transparencies, but as you can see, it is going to fix the readability issues. Let's show you the same thing again. Now it's readable. Now you can see app library. Of course, this is going to be more boring, more flat. It is not as exciting as liquid glass, but if you don't like it, at least you have the option to turn it off. Now, that being said, and moving on, let's swipe down from the top right to access the control center, which, as many of you know, is where we can change quick settings like the brightness or the volume, or turn on the flashlight, change the connectivity settings. For a very long time, this option showed a very specific set of options in a specific order, and that's what you got with the iPhone. But in iOS 18 and of course iOS 26, if you tap and hold on any empty space, you can actually access the editing mode to delete and add anything you want to the control center. So if you tap on add a control, you can select from a very long list of controls. Let's add this one right here. You also have the option to add multiple pages of controls, and the more controls you add, the more pages that show up. So you could theoretically have, I'm sure, 20, 30, 40 pages, even though that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And of course, as you can see, you also have the option to drag things around and change the position of these things so they are more accessible. Now, as you've been seeing right now, there is a level of magnetization that makes things move when you don't really want them to move. Like sometimes you move just the thing you wanted, but in other times you move everything else and you can end up with a mess. So if you ever regret the changes you've made to the control center, there's actually a quick fix. You just have to tap out of control center, then come to the settings, swipe back to the main settings page, and swipe down to control center. Right here, you just have to tap on reset control center and tap again, and automatically, as you can see, you'll get the default control center so you can start your customization over from scratch. Now, that being said, and moving on, as a quick tip for those of you who like to change their ringtones, if you come to the Files app and select any audio file you have right here, you can actually tap on it, tap on Share, tap on More, and use this audio as a ringtone. As you can see, in my case, I already have it as a ringtone, so I can't add it twice. But once you include it as a ringtone, you can come to the settings, then swipe down to sound and haptics, and then right here on ringtone, you can use it as your ringtone. But anyways, that being said, let's now tap on the camera app because, as you can see, we've gotten a pretty big layout change as opposed to what we had before. The first thing you'll notice is that only photo and video are available. We don't have any slow-mo option or landscape or any of the other typical phone options. But don't worry, because if you swipe to the right or to the left, the phone will reveal every other option available on the phone. Now also, if you swipe up from any specific mode, like this, you'll see you have access to additional controls like your flashlight or styles. And well, this is one of the headline features for all the new iPhones. When you're taking a selfie, now you can actually access a wider field of view so you can cover more people. And if it is a group photo, you can actually tap right here to make the view horizontal without having to flip the phone. In this case, with the expanded view and the landscape mode, you can cover a lot of people on this view. Like if you stretch your hand, you can cover everything. Any large group of people is going to comfortably fit on the frame without you having to do hand gymnastics. And well, also introduced this year, if you're using the video mode and you swipe up like this, you'll see a new option called dual capture. If you turn it on, automatically, you'll be able to capture from the rear camera and the front camera at the same time. What's really cool is that you can also move the frame to anywhere you want on the display. So you can, maybe if you're capturing something that's more relevant at the top of the display, you can move yourself to the bottom and vice versa. And once you finish, the whole video is going to get captured, as you can see, simultaneously at the same time, including the movements you've made while you were recording. There we go. Now, that being said, while we are talking about the camera, I also want to show you some quick settings to change to take better photos and videos. So let's get back to the main settings page, then swipe down to camera, and then tap right here on record video. The first thing you have to do is to change to 4K 30, and then swipe down to disable HDR video. This is going to take out some dynamic range from your videos, but it's going to make them look way more professional. And well, for photos, you want to swipe back to the main camera menu, then tap on Formats, tap on Most Compatible, and then enable ProRAW and Resolution Control so you can take 48 megapixel images. Once this is enabled, you can come to the camera app on Photo, and then tap right here on JPEG to switch from 24 megapixels to 48, which is the maximum resolution and therefore the sharpest photo option you can have. And well, as a quick extra tip, let's get back here to the main camera settings and swipe back to prioritize faster shooting. This is going to be turned on by default, and it is going to let you take faster photos, but at the expense of some image quality. In my opinion, if you turn it off, you can still take photos at a pretty fast rate, but they are also going to look noticeably better. And well, of course, since we are talking about the Pro iPhone, we also have to talk about display customization. So let's swipe down to display and brightness. Of course, you have the default settings we've had for a very long time. You can change from light mode to dark mode, which is also going to save a little bit more battery life since the dark mode consumes less energy. You can also change the text size. You can turn on bold text so it's more readable. You can enable or disable true tone, which is going to, as you can see, shift the colors of the display to adjust them to the environment so it looks a little bit cleaner and easier to read. And if you want a more extreme version of that, you can tap on night shift and turn it on. As you can see, automatically it is going to almost delete all the blue light on the phone, turning it very yellow, which may seem kind of absurd at a first glance, but when you're about to go to bed and you don't want to be exposed to blue light, this is very useful, especially for those of you who have a hard time falling asleep at night. Trust me, it is going to be helpful. Now also here on the display settings, since it is a Pro iPhone, we also have the option to change the always on display customization. By default, it is going to look like this with every option turned on. So you are going to be able to see the lock screen wallpaper, you're going to see the notifications, the widgets, the time. In my opinion, too much information, too much battery life consumption. I personally think it is better to turn all of these options off so you can just see the time and your widgets. And well, the widgets I would also turn off, but there's no option. This way you can take a quick glance at the time, and if you want anything else, you can just tap on the display and fully turn it on, like that. And well, that being said, as an extra hidden display setting, because it is not on the display in brightness settings for some reason, if you tap on accessibility and then tap on motion, all the way at the bottom, you'll see an option called limit frame rate. As many of you know, the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max have 120 Hz displays, which feel very smooth, but that also consumes more battery life. So I suggest you come here, turn on limit frame rate, and if you don't notice a significant difference in fluidity, well, then you can just leave this on to save even more battery life. But anyways, that being said, I think that's everything you need to get properly started with the iPhone 17 Pro. If you have any questions regarding anything that I said in the video, please tell me down below. And if not, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again very soon. Peace.